And that way we can kind of go through. How's everyone doing this Friday? Hopefully you are doing well. It's that day we've been looking for all week long. All right. Hope everybody can see my screen okay. Let me go back. Let me just get to the window itself. In 1 second, let me reshare. Done the wrong thing. All right, here we go. Get that way it's a little bit better on the screen. All right, so we'll get started here in a moment. Thanks again for having us to be able to present this and show you Patch My PC. We've been around for a little while. Hopefully you know about us. Hopefully you're using it. I saw a number of customers out there that we've talked to and do use our product, but hopefully we'll be able to show some things that maybe we have some new features that you just haven't come across on the publisher yet. And if you don't know about our product, I guess we can just, a lot of people say, well, what is Patch My PC? And it's one of those things that we can, have a kind of a simplified term, because sometimes you have to explain that to the folks they're going to spend the money. What can I get with Patch My PC, and what exactly is that? And I'm gonna let Cody kind of explain that just in a small, little synopsis there as far as what Patch My PC is and what it can do.
Yeah. Did you want to search for ROI real quick on our website as well? So, I mean, at a high level, we're kind of handling third-party patch management, and it's from a couple perspectives. At the start, the main feature is going to be publishing updates. Where the company started was publishing updates in WSUS. And as the company has evolved, that's kind of moved on to publishing applications into Configuration Manager base installs, kind of populating all the info in there. And then recently, over the past year, we've really developed our Intune set. And then based on customer feedback, we kind of keep developing each of these features, whether it's adding in an update type feature in Intune, which we'll see today, and then building on other features as well, like autopilot and managing enrollment status pages. And so overall, we're looking to manage third-party apps. We want to simplify it, we want to speed it up, make it consistent, and maintain the lowest number of vulnerabilities on your endpoints, because a lot of those CVEs end up being from third-party products.
No, absolutely. And we all know the biggest headache is not only, trying to update things, but being able to find when those things need to be updated. And that's really one of the biggest hurdles that we come into. And we know we can package things, we can get these updates and we can push those out. But, if we can automate that, and that really helps out having us where we can do other tasks that we really need to be doing. And that's hopefully what we can provide for you within our product. We can help to automate that third-party patching, and then also creating those applications as well. So not only do I need to create those updates, but I need to update those applications, because I don't want to push out an out-of-date application and immediately have to update it. So you have those work hand in hand, and then you can also use those, as maybe a way to roll back if you needed to, because you'll have an uninstall in there. So as we go through this installation, we'll show you basically how you can install the program. Very simple. We'll show you how to go get a trial. It's a full trial. It's really easy to do. You just come into the free trial page. Once you go in here, we've got a little bit of information. If my website ever loads, there we go. Just a little bit of information. Now, when you submit this information, it's the full product. It's not just a small amount, which you can turn on just a small amount in there, but it is the entire product set. You'll see all the applications that we have in here. So it's really easy to come in and look at all the supported products. Now we've got about, I want to say 400 entries, and they're some of them are duplicates, but maybe a different language set, maybe an x86, different architecture and things like that, but around 405, something like that in the total number. But then I want to say it's probably around 3 or 350 as far as the different applications. But we do have a big list, but I'll show you an easier way to see what you have in your environment. And that way you can compare it with what we have in our catalog without having to just go through another list, because we want to automate as much as we can to make it really easy to kind of go through this whole process. So like I said, easiest way is to go in, complete the trial form, and then submit that in, and then we'll present you with a full trial for that 30 days, and then you can run through the process. So we'll just do a little quick install. You can go to our download documentation page. Really simple to do. It's from this link here or just from here. So we'll click on that. And then I've already got it downloaded because we have some new features we want to show in our preview build, but you can just download the stable build from here. We do have videos and PDF files in here that will show how simple this is to set up, but you'll see as we go through that it is really simple to set up. There are a few little gotchas that we'll kind of go through the way there and kind of show you those, but for the most part, it's very simple to set up. If you do want to try out a product and you do want to set this up, we can even jump on a call with you and help you set that up. No cost to you at all. We just want to make sure that it's working correctly and that you can use it for the best of its ability in your environment. So if you do choose to do that, give us a chance and we can definitely jump on a call and help you out because we do like doing that. So we'll just kick this off real quick. Very simple, and it's a gigantic file. Just be aware it's only 6 megs. Oh, excuse me, I think we're 6.6 megs, so pretty large file there. All right, so we'll just go ahead and kick this guy off. Very simple install. Now we do have the ability to install just for Intune. So if you are a customer that maybe just has Intune, then you can set up our publisher just on Intune. We do have one big requirement as far as our publisher on the config manager world is that it be installed on our top level software update point. Basically in our little environment here, we've got that simple setup. All the roles are on the same server. So we're going to install it here. But if you have a remote SUP, of course, you would need to install this on that remote SUP and then also have a few of the other configurations that we have listed in our system requirements there. But as far as an Intune standalone, this could be loaded on just a server-based, server OS VM or even a Windows 10 workstation if you'd like. And there's just a few little requirements you'd have to do on there. So we make it really easy to go in there because we're just going to be communicating with Intune from the publisher itself. So we'll go ahead and finish this install out. Just take all the defaults and just let it roll through. Once we do that, we are almost there. So within the config manager environment, of course, if you've ever done anything third party, you know, what do you have to deal with? I got to push a certificate out there so that my WSUS is, can trust what it's going to be receiving in, and then I can push that out and it's trusted on my clients themselves. So we've got 3 different ways you could publish that. We can import one through our certificate authority. We could create a self-signed cert for you and let you deploy it out with a package or through group policy, or we can let config manager do that once we enable third-party patching. Now, we can go ahead and do that real quick. We'll just jump through this, do a quick little setup, and then we'll just come into our site components, and then we'll enable this guy. All right, we'll just do this one. Then once we go in there, we'll go ahead and close out. We'll do a SUP sync. Makes it really easy to roll through. All right. Watch that just a second. All right, now we've got our certificate created. So let's just go in here and let's relaunch our publisher. So once we do that, we're going to go. And now we detect that we've got that certificate out there. So we've met our requirements right now. So I put in for my trial, or if I were to purchase the product, I would have a URL here. I place that in there. Basically, I validate it. We're going checking in, making sure that all the licenses are correct back on our server. And then we see our code signing cert. You can go validate it if you need to make sure it's in proper store. But once you have it out there, it's really simple to do. And I believe I always try to use a thing, no matter where you get that code signing cert from, as long as it's there, it's just one of those that we have to have out there. So it does help out. You do have some logging methods here. Most of the time, customers will leave it on information. You can do debug and then adjust your max size if you'd like to see more logging. But we have always called these the cheat buttons, so I don't have to go start drilling down and finding these logging paths. So I always can find the patch my PC log and the WSync manager log really easy from that one little pane there. All right, so we'll go and start jumping on the updates. So right now, how simple that was to set up. If you have the certificate out there, it's really simple. But right now, I could go start finding updates that I need to start deploying and publish those guys out there and start getting those ready for our deployments whenever we get those ready. Now, we make it really easy, as I mentioned earlier, to find what you have in your environment and then show you what we can patch for you. So just by doing the database scan right there, we'll put in a little bit of information, put in the server name, the database name. You can even limit this to an optional collection if you wanted to. we're going to use all systems by default, but you can most definitely pick at, all workstations. You could really fine tune this collection that you wanted to have that in there. And then you have the option to come in and then just go query. So if you had to use a different authentication, of course, you can most definitely do that. But you can see you've got a number of things that are showing here. Now, where we're pulling this information from, we're pulling this from your hardware inventory. We're just using that information that you've already got in there in your database. So we're going to query 4 or 5 of those different views, and then we're going to report back of what we can patch for you. This is not a compliance list by any means. This is just a list of items that we can patch for you in your environment. So we can make it really easy for you to find what's out there. And sometimes this is surprising for folks when they start seeing the things that are out there. You can see that, wow, I've got a number of this specific app that I didn't think we had it installed at all. So once you do that, then you could come in and you could possibly do the heavy hitters. We've got a number of customers will come and do those first. And once you go through that, it's perfectly fine. They'll start adding more and more and more as they go. And that's, like I said, that's just one way to do it. Some will even come in and just highlight all of them. You say, hey, Patch My PC can publish this. I'm going to publish it and I'm going to patch it. So we'll go that way. And that's great too. Where both of those have a little bit of a hitch there, what happens when there's a brand new device, a brand new application installed in my network? Well, I would have to come back in here periodically and check and see if there's something else out there. And a lot of times that periodic check comes from after you've done a vulnerability scan and you've found a piece of software that's on your network that's vulnerable. And then, well, why am I not picking that up? We've got this nice software. Well, that's when you might want to come in and then start looking at the auto enabling features on here to publish these automatically. And that's where we want to try to make our job a lot easier as far as just finding what's out there and finding what's needing to be patched, and then also publishing those as well. So just by selecting this one little box and then picking my threshold of number of how many devices I want to see have an application installed before I decide I want to patch it. So I can go and I could set this guy to 3. And then I would be able to even go in and make some right-click customizations on here to have some other steps done as I'm going to push out this update and publish it out into WSUS. So I could even have, the disable self-updater, delete desktop shortcut, create install logs. I'll show those a little bit more detail as we go back to the publisher, but you do have that option to select those in there as well. Now, once we have this done, then we can take it to the next step. I also have the ability to enable the automation piece of creating base applications based on what I have. Now, I want to get everything updated, but I don't, like I said before, I don't want to push out something to somebody that's got a brand new machine that needs a specific application. I don't want to push out an old application to them and then immediately have to update it. That's where this comes into play. So you could have this enabled as well, and then you could do it in threefold. You could basically have it to where you could push out that application in a required deployment. You could have it to where it is in a task sequence. You can just add that new application to a task sequence when it gets updated. And then the third is that what happens if you push out an update and it breaks something and you have to roll it back? Oftentimes you have to go and create an uninstall. Well, that's where this helps you out too, because when you create that application, you're going to have that deployment type in there that's going to be then uninstall. So we're going to have an install and uninstall, and sometimes even repair. So that's where they kind of work hand in hand. You can have those matched up. And then we have a number of customers that are doing the auto enable feature there, and it does help out. Some get kind of scared when they don't want to do this, but it's perfectly fine because we don't deploy anything. All we're doing is getting that content to you. We're creating those new updated files. We're getting it into your environment. You still have all that control to push those things out. And you only pick the ones that you really want to have out there. And I'll show you another way you can kind of exclude some things that maybe if they get detected in my network, I don't want to have those published and I don't want to have those. So I'll show you another way to kind of exclude those as well. So let me uncheck these now so I won't make a mistake and then start publishing everything in our catalog. So we'll just come down and we'll select a few items. So we'll just go to the good old faithfuls. We'll do Google Chrome, and then let's go pick, where is she? We'll just go down in here and we'll go pick Java. Hopefully, majority of you don't have Java in your environment, but if you do, you know what kind of pain it can be. We all feel that throughout the years, and now they're even making it more difficult because they're charging for it now. So as we go in here, we've selected a few items, but maybe we want to make our job a little bit easier and say, okay, if I go and I select something, I want to have it have all the settings. I want to somewhat make a global setting at the very top to where it'll carry down to everything down below. But I don't want it to truly overwrite if I do set it to something else later on. So I can always just right click there at the top. And then I have some other options, very similar to what I showed you earlier as far as in the database scan. And then we can go in here and we can choose a few things. Now, these two, as we know in the other type of publishing, a lot of times you would publish metadata and then you would have to republish and get the full content. When you select something within our publisher, we're going to, by default, have the full content come down for you because you can't deploy metadata. You'd still have to republish it as full content. So we'll have that there. You can also come in, maybe auto close it. You know, this is something that, you know, for the majority of things, you might want to do that so that you get a clean install. Be careful on this one, the skip installation if it's in use. If I'm the world's worst of having apps open, especially like this remote desktop manager. And when it needs to get updated, of course, it just sits there and spins and spins and spins. If that setting is set, as I think I've told Andrew and Cody at times that I've had something open, but I needed to update it. So I'll have to wait till the end of the day. And that's kind of what you end up doing there. You could also come in, maybe do the delete desktop shortcut if you wanted to. And we can see we've got how many different applications that would be applicable to that specific setting there. So you'll see some of that as we go through. And then we can go disable self-updater, which is always a good one. That keeps those phone calls from coming to your support center when those end users don't have access to install things. And then we can do the manage install logging. So this is one I suggest for everybody I talk to, and you know, it's just one of those things you can get so much more information if you enable this. We're going to create an additional log directory on your clients in your CCM logs. We're going to, as you see here, we've got it patch my PC install logs. Within here, we're going to have those vendor logs. So if there's an EXE or MSI that the vendor has allowed logging, you'll get all that information instead of just having the good old 1603s or exit code zeros that we're used to seeing. You'll find out a lot more information as far as that. We're also going to enable verbose to have some more information, and then even prefix that log with the computer name. And that's why it's easy to pull that off to where I could put it out on a share or sit it, having it waiting for somebody to look at, and I don't get it confused with something else. I know where it came from. And then I can even have a UNC path listed in here to where all my failed logs will go to. So once I go in here, I can place that guy there, and then we'll be ready to start getting everything pushed out. So we'll just go ahead and hit OK. So we've got some global settings, but what happens if I don't want to have Google to, I just want to let Google update on its own? I can easily come down here, right click, and then I could just uncheck it from there. And I don't have to worry about it inheriting all those other settings. It's going to keep that setting that I've got, and it won't change until I go back in and change it. So just keep that in mind. This is very good to know as far as when there's an update for Google coming out, all these settings will stay until I go back in and change it. So if I were to come in, just for an example, if I had an MST that I'd created for this MSI, and I wanted to make some customizations, I could have it in there and it would take those same settings each time. Same way with any of the command lines. And this is something you got to kind of be aware of, especially if you're changing a piece of software and you maybe have to point to a different file server or different license server for it. You might have to be sure and go back in and change that as well as the updates as it's creating an update for it. And then one thing that more and more customers are doing are the pre and post scripting. This gives you so much more flexibility. You can go in here and really customize things. I believe Andrew has written a document as far as some of the different ways. You know, there are some applications. I think it was Adobe that he wrote an article on that, you know, basically they do their own lot of little packaging and they kind of make it hard for us to do some things, but you can still apply those custom settings after the fact just by using this scripting and then also the command line and things like that. So we make it really easy to go in and add a pre-update script to where it'll run before the installation. You can have it run before the pre-update, especially if you're going to do the auto close. You could have that guy selected, and then even on the post update, that really helps out a lot. This will give you so much more customization to where, just for this example, we'll just change the home page, and you can see we have all the modern languages that we can use there. We'll go ahead and hit apply. And then within here, we can always add different files. If we've got some INI files that we need to apply into a certain directory, we can do that there. additional folders we can create. So we've got a lot more flexibility with just this one little option here that will help us to have this applied to the updates, but then also we can apply that to any applications and then carry everything over into Intune as well. So as we're going through that, and then we'll look at one more thing here. We'll look at our Java install. Now, Java, as we talked about before, as I mentioned before, I'm a little jaded on there because I've had to deal with it for years and just never really liked it because it updated so much and was just never really played nice. But with Java, of course, we've all had to deal with going and uninstalling it before we install the new one because it installs multiple instances. Well, we help you with that. We go ahead and install a free script on there that'll go and uninstall any previous versions of Java. And that way we make it easy for you to go in and update the most current ones. You can disable it if you have some developers that need to have multiple versions, but just keep in mind, we do have that option for you in there. Now, Java's one of those we'll talk about in a minute. It's one that requires a manual download. We'll go into fuller detail with that on the advanced tab, but of course, the local content repository will have to have all those files downloaded into there. There's only 4 applications that do require that. So once we've got those, we've got some updates selected there. But what happens when you run that vulnerability scan and you get, a big, nice list of CVEs from your security team saying, oh, you need to handle these. We need to make sure that these are pushed out. So we've made that easy. And we've made that easy by creating a little import wizard here. I'm gonna let Cody talk a little bit about this as I click on it and we kind of go through there. But this is one of our newest features that we've got in there that's really beneficial for what you need as far as the application being the updates coming in there. So, Cody?
Yeah. So we heard from a few customers that they would get approached by whether it's their cybersecurity team or through doing their own research, RSS feeds, they'd be notified about CVEs. And so this feature got added to address being able to remediate specific CVEs. You can go ahead and open up that CVE list document there, actually on the left, if you don't mind, in Notepad++. So it's we try to do as much magic as we can to allow you to really just dump CVE formatted IDs in here. You can see we've got some that happen to be in a column. We've got some that are just in a big line of semicolon separated. As long as those IDs are in there, we're going to go ahead and parse this and pull them in. And then I believe he did click process on the wizard in the background there. And so there's 2 ways we show them. You can either show here, we've got them grouped by available and unavailable. And then you can also group them by product. Group by product usually kind of looks a little cleaner, but it depends on the list of CVEs you're looking at. So a couple of really common offenders here. We've got Java and Google in here. You're going to get the specific CVE that is remediated and whether or not we have a patch available to remediate it. And we do see our unavailable ones as well. So that's pretty important to know which ones you're not patching. And then we've got select all available if you'd like, and then you can just import. And that's going to immediately publish those into WSUS so that you can deploy those out. We've got some docs there as well that kind of covers the whole feature.
Great. Yeah. Just want to let him talk a little bit about some of the things that he's developed. So it's always good to have them on there that they can kind of help explain that a little bit more. So we'll just go in here. So we've got 2 updates ready to go. So we'll go and do our next little step. We're going to create some base applications, but we have to do a little bit of a configuration first. So once we go in here, we can go into our options, and then we'll need to set this up. Very simple. Of course, your provider information, in my case, it's going to be localhost, but if you have a remote SUP, you may have to be sure and put that in there, make sure you got the proper information. We do have it to where we can create a security role if you do have that remote SUP, and we've got just a limited access on that role to where you can just give that server account that role within your config manager console so that you can communicate. So it's really easy to do. Once we do that, then once you have that done, of course, you need to have your location for your source files for your applications. Of course, just the UNC path there will be perfectly fine. We have a few things that are done here by default. Just one really to highlight on that we code sign our PowerShell detection scripts. We standardize on a PowerShell detection script within all of our applications so that you don't have to go and do any of that. We do that for you. Anytime there's an update to it, we'll do all the work for you to make it where all you have to really do is have it coming through, start your testing, get ready for your deployments that way. So we're doing all that legwork for you as far as that. Now, we are going to sign that with the code signing cert that you've deployed out there. So just keep that in mind. The only other thing I normally will set within here once I'm setting this up would be to move those guys into their own location within the config manager console. You could come and add to, turn off the application, the version of that application. I kind of like having that. I kind of like knowing what versions I'm pushing out. And then also, you can delay the release. We've got some customers that do the delay as far as when there's a new version of that application, and that can push it out there. But I like having it available, and I just will start my testing immediately before I start pushing anything out there. So you can kind of have both of those set. So it's really good. So we'll just come in and pick from the applications. We've already got a folder created. So we'll come back over here. We see within here, we don't have anything. We don't have anything there. So we'll just aim everybody to that little folder. So once we have that done, that's the basic setup as far as that. The next section there is one of those, it's personal preference, I think, a lot. And it really depends on.
I think we used them.
What's that? Hello? All right. Okay, so this the middle section here is basically how you would push the updates, updated applications into your console. So you have you have the ability to update them in place within the console and just basically have it replace that version each time. Or you can have it create a net new. I always kind of let it set as far as to create net new, and that way it's kind of a I'm covering all bases as far as there to where I've got the new version showing up, and then at the top level, and then I could go to each one of those applications later on, and then choose to update it in place if it's something that's not going to cause any problems like 7-zip or maybe Notepad++ or things like that. I could just have it create a net new instance each time, or the updated instance in the config manager console. So by default, we'll just distribute out to all your DPs. You can select a group, especially if you have CMG set up and you might not want to have all that content going out to that cloud DP. You might want to fine tune this a little bit as far as with your groups, but we do have the ability to do that. And then we'll come back and revisit this little guy here in a moment once we create some applications. Right now, we don't have anything. There's not going to be anything to show, but that's a little utility that'll help you go and delete those applications, but then also delete the deployments for those as well, and then also the content. So really easy to use and really helpful along the way. So we'll go ahead and click OK there. So now we've already done a little work on the updates tab, but I always try to suggest to do a lot of work on the updates. This is where you want to spend your legwork. You want to have all those, I'm going to find everything during my database scan. I'm going to select all the items that I want to have there. I'm going to do all my customizations from this one tab here. And then once I get over to the config manager apps, I've got it really easy. All I have to do is come over and click the copy button. I'll bring over all those custom settings that I did at the very top. But then I have a few more that are more application centric. Once we're in here, I can also come in and I can verify it from in here too. I brought over that same script that I added as well. So I brought that guy over, but I do get a lot more there that are more application centric as well. So let's just go create a new one. So we'll just go and pick 7-zip here. So we're just going to go get this guy. And then within here, we'll go ahead and start adding some of these options. So we can see once we get into the application level, we don't have any ability to do this logging and self-update, and that just means it's just not supported with this specific application because it's grayed out. We do see that we've got a few of these other ones we could go and check, so we can look. Maybe if I want to change up the user experience, I could do this here, just with that right-click option. I can adjust some of those things normally I can do within the deployment types. Then I can also come in and maybe even move this guy into its own folder, so I can have a little bit more organization within there as well. And then I can also come in and then change the application icon or even the application name the way it's going to show to our end users. So that's where this really gets out to. So there are some companies out there that do like to have more corporate style icons, or maybe a more of a customer friendly name to an application. I don't know which ones wouldn't have, but they may want to change up that a little bit. So you do have that option. And then some of the last things here that are really good to talk about, of course, recreate detection scripts. Sometimes we do have to go modify some things within the detection script. So instead of having to go and recreate that whole application, you would just have to go and recreate detection script. And then here is where you can go make a different setting for that application on how it updates. So instead of taking the base install options, which is a create a new one, we know that 7-zip, there's no risk. So I can go and I can check that guy there. And now that one will automatically create its update within the config manager console instead of creating a net new one each time. So I can go and have it at the base option at the top and then adjust it as I go down below. So once we have that done, now we've got some things ready to go in config manager. So let's venture over into the cloud real quick. So we'll jump over here to our Intune apps. We're going to need to do a little bit of configuration. Once we go in here, of course, we know we'll have to go in and create a new app registration. So we'll go into our Azure portal. We'll create that new app registration. We'll, place the ID in here. We'll create the application secret from the left-hand side, certificates and secrets. Once we get that, we'll be able to, test our connection. Then we'll need to give some access. Once we go in there and we give some access, we'll go in here. We can just double check some of the access that we've got in here. So they're going to be really and truly, I believe we'll be able to take that one off because we made some adjustments to where that was kind of redundant. So we do have some things in here that you can go and verify. Let me close out of that. And I'm going to let Cody talk a little bit about this access. We just gave a new one because we've got some new features associated with that. But the majority of this is device management apps. They're going to be read and read write. That's going to give us ability to create applications in our tenant. We're going to give device management managed devices, which is going to give us the ability to scan those managed devices we've got and see what applications are installed. And then also the group read all here would be, of course, to be able to see those groups that I'm going to make my assignments to. And then we've got a new one. We've got a device management service. I can't remember what the whole verbiage is right there, but within here, service config and read write. Cody, can you talk a little bit about this specific permission and where it would be related to once we go in here?
Yeah, so we can show the feature off later after we get some apps in Intune, but it's for managing the enrollment status pages. So if you're familiar with Intune, you've probably used enrollment status pages, and you can select a list of applications that you want to install during autopilot or during that enrollment status page period. And what we're going to allow you to do now is manage those and maintain them. So if you have, say, Google Chrome associated with your ESP, and that's a Patch My PC managed app, we're going to keep updating that reference to be the latest version that we're publishing with the tool. So you're always going to be deploying out the latest version of those third-party apps during autopilot.
Great. Now, I clicked on a few things that we'll be able to show as we go through there, but basically that's what we were doing with the enrollment status. So we'll just go ahead and minimize this guy real quick. So we'll just run through here. So we can make this really easy to extend what we've got in Config Manager over into Intune. We can use that same method that we did before. Some call it lazy, some call it, hey, no reason to reinvent the wheel. We're just going to enable all those same ones we brought over we're going to bring those all over from updates and make it really easy to do that. So we can bring all those settings over and all those applications. And then we can see that what we did in the updates tab is going to come over. So we've got Google and we've got Java. We did our 7-zip another way, but we can come in and we can see that we've got, some of those same options, but we get a few more. Here's the ESP profiles that Cody was just talking about. We do have the ability to come in here and change naming convention. That's always a really helpful thing. So if we came in, just because I'm in the apps tab, I can come in here and I can go, we'll just name it core apps and just change this up a little bit. And then what we want to do, maybe do product name and version. So anything down below is going to take that naming convention once we see it in there. We could even come in and add everybody into their own little category if we wanted to, have everybody live there. We could come in and maybe even go in and manage these assignments. We might want to have everything as it's getting updated. We might want to have everything be available to test machines. We'll just use all users for that. So they'll have it show up, but we make it really easy to do that. You can go in and manage those assignments from here and do that. So once we have this done, you could come in and you can add in the different availabilities, and then even have grace periods for the restart. So it makes it really easy to come in here and do some customizations without having to go back into that endpoint management portal there and having to click and click and click and click to get all that done. You can have everything in here, and every time there's an update, it's going to set and be showing up in the same way. All right, and you can modify this. This is another good one to always click on too. All right, so we'll click.
You want to associate one of these apps with an enrollment status page real quick too. Just any of them that you've enabled here in Intune apps. Just right click. Yeah, Google would be fine.
Google real quick, and we'll right click.
Yeah. Awesome. Just go ahead and check that. Yep.
And then we'll do both of these.
Mm-hmm.
That way we can do that, and that way we can see it later on. Right. All right. So we've got that guy set. So what if we want to go pick some other things? Well, I can come and do manual selection in here, but what if I want to see what I've got out there and kind of pull in some of that information? Well, that's where we can go and do our scan here. This is where that third permission comes to play. And then we'll go in and we'll connect. And then we're going to see our managed devices. Once we see that, of course, we can see that we've got Google out there. Of course, most everybody has Google, but we'll go and we'll exclude that guy out, an already enabled product. And then we'll go in and we can look and we could, apply the filter, and then we'll go and select some of these other things in here as well. So we know that, I know because I live in this demo lab here, so I just about know all the applications installed, but we'll pick 7-zip 64-bit for an example. We'll just select this guy, and then we can have that published out there. So once we do that, we can have that, but you can also do that automation piece in here as well. So we have the updates, update to these applications, but we'll also be able to publish the applications as well. So Cody, you might want to talk a little bit as far as the difference between an Intune application and an Intune update, which sounds new.
Yeah, sure. So a lot of customers were expressing the need to update apps via Intune, and specifically update. And the issue within Intune is that targeting devices based on what they have installed, there's not a native thing. You can get crafty and create your own inventory using like whether it's blob storage or log out to a database, log analytics. But we were hoping to create something that was pretty simple to implement, didn't require a lot of extra legwork. And so the way we're doing our updates is we create a requirement script as well. And that requirement script is checking to see if there is a previous version of the app installed. And if there is, then the app becomes applicable. So it mirrors the functionality of applicability rules that exist for WSUS updates. And the net result is you can deploy out Google Chrome 87 to your entire fleet, and only those devices with an older version of Chrome are going to show the update as applicable in Intune, and then they will install the latest version. If there's no version of Chrome, then the update doesn't apply and it'll never install.
Yeah, great. So you see here, I'm just going to go ahead and turn off that one assignment because I didn't want to have, didn't want to have 7-zip going out there. So, and then we want to go and explore our Intune update. So we want to kind of bring over everything that we've done, in Intune. We just want it, since we pulled everything from Config Manager, we want to kind of carry that over and have everything in our Intune apps and have those apps available to be updated the easy way. So we'll just pull all those guys over into our Intune updates. We do it the same way. We'll come in and just click our little copy button, make it really easy just to carry everything over, just walk it on down the line. We can see once we do that, and then I've got one thing that's not available. So, I've got some naming convention that I'll need to be sure and go in and change if I'm doing that copy, but I've got where I don't have a managed assignment. And the reason why, because when you get into the updates tab, you don't have the available. Basically, there's not really a need for it here. It's really just a need for the required and uninstall, because once you get into the Intune updates, then you just want to be making those act more like a Microsoft update and make those required. So just keep that in mind. That's basically what you have there. But we want to come in and we want to modify this. So instead of having core apps, we may want to have, have these just listed as updates. So we can just come in here and we can have kind of the same thing, but it's really easy to have that applied, and we'll have the updates. And then we could have those go out. And then you can also change that specific piece on each individual one if you wanted to modify that naming convention later on if you wanted to. So we've brought over that 7-zip. We'll go ahead and publish this guy out because we know we need to publish that out to be a required deployment, or excuse me, assignment. When I switch over to Intune, I have to change my verbiage there. So we'll just go in and we'll make everybody get that specific one as well. So we'll have that guy. And then once I get in here, I can go and modify it a little bit more. I can change some availabilities, make it act more like my Microsoft type updates, or when I'm doing my deployments in Config Manager, I can have those out, and then I can have multiple rings sitting out here as well, as far as when I want to have those after publishing date, and have it so many days after there and so many days after that one. So makes it really easy to go in there and do some customizations as well. All right, so we'll go ahead and hit OK. We'll hit apply. Then the next thing we come to, we got to sync it. We got to get the process going. We got to pull everything from our publisher and get it over into our WSUS and over into our Intune, and creating those applications in our config manager console. But we also need to know the newest bits coming down. So when we run our publishing service, we're checking in with Patch My PC. We're going to be, if there's any new updates to a catalog, we're going to pull that guy down there. We're going to have any new supported products in there that'll go along with those scans that you're doing. We're also going to start publishing those items over into your WSUS. After that, we're going to be doing our applications, creating those base applications within the Config Manager console. And then we're going to be publishing up into your tenant as far as these apps and those updates. So once you have that done, because I have this trigger set here to run a software update point sync, once I do that, then it will go ahead and start running that sync with the WSUS, and then pull all those updates over into Config Manager where you can see them. Now, if you have your sync set on the schedule and it's one of those that you have to do it for work reasons, perfectly fine. We always try to schedule this to have it, maybe an hour or so before that, but it's always good to try to run this once a day because we're always updating. There's always a catalog update. There's always a specific piece of software. Cody, what was the one last week that they updated every day? That specific piece of software was FileZilla. FileZilla. Oh yeah. So there's some applications, as you know, as you guys have been dealing with these different applications, there are some that just update all the time. So it's just one of those things that it's always good. And keep in mind, when it's a 0-day update, they'll be out the same day. So majority of all the other updates, as they're getting out there, we try very hard to get them out the same day for the most part, unless there's a download issue or something like that. Then it may take an extra day or so, but majority of the time, all the updates for these applications will come out the same day that they're available from the vendor. So, all right. So the next thing, once we start doing our sync here, we'll go ahead and kick this guy off. So as we're syncing, as we've started this process, then we want to be alerted to know what's going on when things are being published. So we'll just go over to our alerts tab here. Within our publisher, we do have the ability to tie into Microsoft Teams just by creating a simple webhook, creating it, attaching it onto a specific team or channel, creating that, configuring that URL and placing the URL in there. Then we'll be able to see that notification come per product into our Teams notifications there. We'll see those start popping up here in just a moment. But then we also have the ability to create just the regular SMTP type of alerts there. And what comes in those alerts are basically if there's any release notes that are associated with that update, if there's any CVEs related to that update, but then also any successes or any failures with the application, with the publication, any of those things there will show up in that alert as well. So while we're waiting on those guys to come through, we'll just jump over here to the next tab real quick so we are conscious of our time. We'll jump over here real quick. All right, so the next tab is the advanced tab. Of course, it's got a lot of really cool features in there that we need to go through. Of course, proxy, kind of self-explanatory. You got a proxy, you need to put it in there. The local content repository. Here's where these 4 products that do require a manual download, that's where they're explained. Basically, Cisco AnyConnect, anything in the AnyConnect family, you'll need to download it from, of course, Cisco's pay portal. Basically, you log into your website and that with your credentials, and then you just download the bits from there. Memcached is another one that you have to log in through their specific pay portal. Java, we all know that Java, when they started charging last year, of course, now you have to go and accept the EULA and tell them you're going to pay for it, and then make sure you're paying for it. So you don't want to go through an audit. but you will have to download and accept that EULA to get those bits. And then the right-click tools, I believe that it's just a specific file format to where their updates come. It's the reason why you have to download that. Once you have those, basically you just designate a local content repository wherever you want to put it, place it in there, and then you can always have this box checked to where we're going to go and look in that location for it each time. And if you have those items selected, we're going to find it in there. And if it's out of date, of course, we'll notify you through the alert that you need to have the newest bits in there as well. So just keep that in mind. That's something really helpful there. I have a few other things to set, of course, customized content download and log save and things like that. A really good one, we have some nice little reports here. Really simple install. I've already got them installed. We'll go over them in a little bit more detail, but really helpful little bits of information there. Anytime that you're pushing out anything, you need to be able to report on it well, and provide that out there to really know what's going on. Next thing, basically backup and restore. If you've ever gotten caught by a bad backup, this is really important. So we'll look in here. We'll take a look real quick in your install directory, wherever you've installed it to, whether it's C, D, E, whatever. You can always come in here. We'll just go into our program files. We'll go find Patch My PC. We'll go into our publishing service, and then we'll look in the backup folder. Within the backup folder, we're constantly backing up. We're constantly making changes. So if we're making changes there, we're going to back it up to make it easy for you back to restore. And you can find that. We'll keep up to 50 copies, but you'll be able to see everything that we've done today so far, and then we'll have a backup copy. And so in case I forget what change I made and I want to revert back, I could pick a time that I want to go back to and make it easy. If I needed to change servers, most definitely I could easily change servers, load the application on that, bring over the settings XML, and copy that off as well. Do have it where I can put in any external location, but like I said, by default we'll have it there. If you do a VM backup, you should be good to have that. We have a few other things here. Of course, we can trigger a subsync. We can make some advanced configuration within the WSUS, but then also the one that I think a lot of us use the most is basically going in and confirming things within WSUS. Now, this is your view into your WSUS or your third-party updates. So it'll not only pick up our stuff, but if you have other companies that are doing that, any of these other cabs, HP or Lenovo or Dell, any of those as well, we're going to have those listed in here because those are the third-party updates that we've got in there that you can have sent. So that makes it really easy to do. So once you're in here, if you need to do any troubleshooting, you can always just highlight on one of these updates and then just go in and maybe look at some of the logic that we're using to tell the Windows Update Agent in WSUS to see whether or not this needs to be installed on a machine. So you can see some of the logic that we're using as far as those applicability rules. And then you can also come and check the more details on it. I always kind of joke around and say, this is my OCD check to make sure I've done everything right when I'm doing that. So I can always come and check my scripting. I can always see some of these scripts that I've done here. So I can see my post command there, and I can see some of these other things and see all the commands that I've got with that specific update. Now, keep in mind that if you ever have to change an update that you've got published, we do have that option to republish updates on the updates tab, but then you would have it sitting in here. And then of course you would have the naming. It would show just like this guy here as far as republished on a specific date, and it would show here, and then it would supersede the previous update that it's going to supersede. So just keep that in mind. That's why you would see it in here. If you need to go and decline, you can do that. You can kind of clean up and hide some things. So there's a number of things that you can do in here. We do have a nice maintenance wizard here that you can do. And if you do want to use this outside of Config Manager, outside of Intune, if you just want it with standalone WSUS, we do have that option. So it's available out there. We've set up a few of these here recently. Customers wanted to use that and see that. So so that is good to do. So we'll talk about the About tabs. Not a whole lot on here, but it's just some helpful information. We're going to update our publisher for you automatically. You don't have to worry about that. As long as you don't check that box, we'll update it. But then you could get preview builds if you wanted to. If you're a glutton for punishment like stable builds, go ahead. But for the most part, I recommend not doing that unless you have a test environment you can do that on. So it's always perfectly fine to do that. Now, if you want to request software, if you have some pieces of software that you've got in your environment, they're not like it's one that are publicly available and not something that you guys have built, you could always request that in to have us try to look at it and go through it and see if it's something that we could keep in our catalog. We add things all the time. We add features in there. We do have some criteria that we go through. I'll let Cody talk about this in just a moment, kind of go over this a little bit as far as some of the priorities we have to go through as far as seeing these applications and how they get added to our catalog.
Yeah. So it's kind of a common question that we'll get a lot of the time via email, and so we kind of wrote a KB article here, and it covers the main points that we kind of take into consideration. So from an application perspective, how complex is the installer? Is it able to be publicly downloaded? Is the installer digitally signed? So if the vendor does not digitally sign it, we usually will not include it in our catalog. There's a couple exceptions that have just kind of been there a while, but being signed is a requirement for in-console publishing within Configuration Manager. So there's a few apps actually that can't be published through the console because of digital signatures. And then standard format, XE, MSI, MSP, they don't zip it and then send it to you, things like that. And these aren't always a yes or no. It's not black and white. It's just that things we have to take into consideration. And then in terms of features within the publisher as well, it also boils down to complexity, and then your number of votes, number of unique customers that are voting on things. It's always interesting, the dynamic versus adding features versus adding apps. If we add a new app, we're committing to an ongoing commitment of every single time an update is released, we're going to be testing that and maintaining it and getting it out into our catalog. Whereas features, it's generally a one-time engineering time commitment where we've got to figure out how it works, get it working, write the code, test it, release it, and then just make sure ongoing maintenance is usually less. So interesting dynamic on apps versus features.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. And you can see here just from this little tab, we've got a roadmap we publish out there. It's patchmanpc.com/roadmap. It's sitting up there. I can click on it, but it's basically what you will look at there. We see, so many customers needing things, and we're always adding. We want to make sure that you, the customer, understands that we do listen to you, and we'll add those things if they meet all that criteria, because we don't know everything. We're just out here. We're trying to know as much as we can, but we rely on our customers to give us that information back in, to let us know what you need in your environment to make your job easier. So that's what we hope to get some of these releases done out there as far as the applications, and then also some of the features too. I know there's a few people on the call right now that we've worked with, and a lot of times we like working with you, and because you give us so much more information back than we would know ourselves. So we try to just get as much information from the customers as we go through there. So, all right. So once we go in there, and of course you can get your technical support page and things like that from in here. Just really helpful as far as a normal about that you always go through. All right. So let's look here real quick at some of these alerts that we have come through. So we've got some updates for Intune. We've got some applications for Intune here as well. Now we've got some of these other guys that created my core apps that I've created here, so I can look here. So just for an example, we can look at some of these. We'll go in and look and say, just this one, for example, we've got a clickable CVE in there. We've got some clickable release notes as well. So we'll just come in, verify that guy. And then we've got the release notes there. This is an old version. This is just a demo lab. So we've just got an old version that we're going to be pushing out there. So that way we don't have to keep updating all the time in the demo lab, but we'll just kind of go through this. So as we're doing that, I did see the email pop up. Let's go verify that. And you'll see kind of the format. It's basically everything in one single email. Makes it really easy to kind of go through and see. And if you got some nice errors, they'll be nice and pretty re-edited in there too. So just keep that in mind as you're going through that. All right, so let's go in here and look at some of our work that we've done. So we'll go and look at our updates. So let's look at our all software updates. So we know that normally that's just piled full of different updates, and they're really hard to find things. So we make it easy. So as we're pulling things over, if I had to go find something that was associated with that CVE, all I have to do is copy and paste it in there. And then I can go find it. And the reason why we can do that, because we're keeping all that information in the details of the update itself. So it's really easy to go find. Not only can we publish those from the CVE list that we've got that I showed you earlier, but we can also search for it in the config manager console. Makes it really easy. And then once we have everything published in there, we make it really easy to deploy it. So if you had that, everything that's going to come from Patch My PC will be under the vendor being Patch My PC, and makes it really easy to find. So if I needed to filter this off into a ADR, make it really easy to do that. Just with a few simple filters, we can take a look here. Within here, we can just go in, and then we can go and do our software updates with just two simple little filters there. And some folks, I've worked with some people in the past that had put a lot of things in there, and a lot of it was good, but they had one little piece that was causing a problem. And sometimes if you over filter, it will over filter it. It'll take things out that you do need. But you can come in here and see we're pulling everything that's Patch My PC that's not superseded. You could look at it that way. And then of course you could always, minus it out with the title and kind of do that to kind of get around there. But number of things, and then you can still deploy it the way you normally do anything from Microsoft as far as that. So it makes it really easy to kind of keep in that same methodology that you have as the way you're rolling out things as far as Microsoft updates. We can do the same thing as far as within your third-party updates as well. Then also, we'll go in and look. Once we've got that done, we'll jump up here to our applications. And once we get that, we can see that, we mirrored those applications that we had as updates. So we'll show them here, but then I also created my other little update, my little application within here. So let's just go look at our Chrome real quick. So within here, we'll go in and we'll go in our properties of this guy, and then we'll look at a few of the tabs in here and kind of see, this is normally the way we would create things. If I was going to create it manually, we've got this is one of those check boxes that I used to always forget. I'm glad that it was one of those things we set by default. You'll see this, it created by that version. We'll come in here and look at, say, a software center. This is some of that stuff I could have changed with that right click option. I can even come in and look at some of my deployment types. We'll go look at this guy real quick. And within here, we can see our programs. Here's those deployment types programs that we were talking about. We've got an install. We've got an uninstall. I believe there was talk we're going to change this up at some point in time, or there may be a AHA out there for that. Cody, I don't know if you can confirm that or not. We may change up the way we do uninstalls at some point in time, but that way it can handle most versions instead of just that one. But we'll also have a repair. Was I correct on that? Was I misspeaking?
Yep. Okay. Oh yeah, there's potentially we'll change the uninstall to kind of search the registry instead of use a specific product code. Yeah. But it's got some other, we'll see.
Yeah, real kind of flexible. We're trying to be a little bit more flexible with the uninstall, so to speak. So, and then we can go in. Here's the biggie. The stuff that the things that cause you so much headache is trying to figure these guys out and trying to get these detection methods going. Then we've got this guy. So we've got this set. We've got some detection scripts that we're going to run, and we're going to look for a multitude of things. We're going to look for name, GUID, versioning, and we'll even, may even have some registry values in there, just looking to see whether or not it's installed, and then that way you can use that. So you don't have to come in and change anything. We're doing all this for you to try to automate this process as much as possible. And then we can look at, say, our user experience. You could have changed that up as well. So let's do one thing before we jump over there so that we can utilize our time and hopefully have time for some questions. We'll roll through there. So let me just go and open this little UI so we can see this. So we'll have that guy going. And then let me go ahead and just deploy this out. Let's run this guy real quick. As we're going to do that, we're going to see that we can kind of use this for a little cleanup in here as well. Let that guy go through. All right, so we've got here, and so we can see that we've got these, of course, now they're deployed. We've got that. We'll go ahead and refresh that guy and let it come through, and we can see we've got that deployed. So we want to go ahead and get rid of that deployment. We're trying to get rid of Oracle. We're trying to just get it off the machine. So we'll just go and kill that deployment and then start working on other parts of it. So once we do that, we make it really easy to go in there and do that. And then we can kind of do the same thing as we go through. So we'll come in here and maybe we'll just delete the application itself. And we're going to use the same, we're going to use the login credentials for the user to use this. And that same user has to have the same credentials that are based on that role-based administration in the config manager console to be able to uninstall applications. So be aware that is a security feature we've got in there. And once you do that, We'll go ahead and click on that. Now it's gone, content's gone. So you've done a cleanup just really easy from one central console there. Makes it really easy. So we've got that guy deployed out there, and we can now see that we've got some applications in our tenant as well. Let me go back to my apps. All apps. Now I've got some things listed in there. We've added some things. We've got some assigned, some not. So we can see we've got our core apps assigned in here. You know, we know they're going to be available, but we've got some updates available, assigned as well. So we can jump over here when we start looking at some of our clients. We'll jump off here and take a look. So just for an example, we'll go and look in our config manager world. We'll go and look at our applications. We just published those out there, make them available out there. So we'll go and start installing our Oracle. So we know during this install, we're going to do some right-click options. We're going to uninstall it first. We're going to install the update package. We're going to turn off the automatic updates. We're going to kill a process. Once we kill that process, that's when we start making our logging directory, and we can come in here and take a look, and we'll look at our scripting engine. We'll go look for our Patch My PC script runner log. Once we go in there, we can kind of see the whole process. So here's where we're starting our logging. We're killing our process here. We're going in. We're starting to run our pre-boot script there, and then we'll start doing our install for our log or for our update itself. So once we do that, now we can go back in and check that log directory. So we'll have that populated now because we're running the update. And then once we do that, of course, we can see the information in there, and we can always see from there. Of course, that's installed. Makes it really easy to go through. And then you can go verify that, oh, here's some of those other steps that I'm going to do as well. I'm going to turn off my automatic update and do some of those in here. So once that gets done, we can just go verify that guy that's installed. And it'll open up. Now we've got that part turned off, and we got 261 on here. So makes it really easy to come in here and just get this guy updated. So what happens if we want to update Chrome? So we'll just do the same thing, and how will it show if it's turned off or not? You know, that's one of the hardest things. Oftentimes people will have, and me exactly, we'll have Chrome opened up and have multiple things there, and you go to update it. Well, if you've got that automatic update feature turned on, that's fine, but it still has to reboot a lot of times. So we didn't need to kill any process, but that would show because we've got that to where it shut down that process. We do have it to where we're just going to start the installation. So we can go and look at that log here. It just created a new log for that install. All right, got that guy. And once this gets done, this is the one I always kind of joke around. This is that awkward silence moment when it takes up forever to install that. But we can see that it created its public desktop icon, and then it deleted it as we requested it to do. You know, and we can go in here and just verify that we've got the homepage script being run, and you can just come in here and just double check that guy as well. Really easy to have it pointed just about anywhere, or do anything that you need to with that post script there. So we can point there. And then one more thing, we'll show the application on here before we jump over to the Intune. We'll come over here real quick, and we'll jump over and do our application. And that way we can see the way our detection methods work. So we'll kick that guy off. Let me go in here and look real quick. We'll just go find that detection script log. All right, we just created this guy. Now we can see the rules and seeing whether it's installed or not. Makes it really easy. And then you can just reverse the process. All right, while that's being done, let's jump over to our Intune, and hopefully these things will show up. There we go. Now we've got the guys cooking. All right, so we've got some things out there that we're going to install. You know, let's go and install here. So as we start our install, we don't have Chrome installed, so let's just kick this guy off. Kind of do the same thing. Start this process.
That goes, Wes. If you want to pull up the Intune portal, we can check that enrollment status page.
Oh, absolutely. Go back over here.
Yeah, and just go back into devices there. I don't know if you've got it open. Yeah.
Oh, I got it open this one. Yep.
Oh, did you?
I thought I did.
Go back to the other tab. This is, we need to go into Endpoint Manager. Yeah, go to Devices. And then enroll devices. Down about 8 or so to enroll, and then there we go, enrollment status page. Yeah, so when we started this was an empty one. We created it, during the session. If we go to the properties here, and then we scroll down a bit, we can see the apps we selected are now associated. And beyond that, if a new version comes out, for example, if 85 of Chrome or 271 of Java, we would also replace this association with the latest version. I just wanted to show that.
Cool. Yep, and this is in preview right now. So if you have the product, it won't be in there as of yet. All right. Okay, let's jump back over here real quick, see how that did. All right, so that installed, basically a simple little install. You'll see some of the detection scripts we've got in there as well. Really simple to do as far as that. All right. Cody, was there something else? Because I think we were just a couple minutes from time on this one. Was there anything else as far as new things that we've got out there that we want to talk about?
I don't think so. I mean, the more recent features we've added have been, managing categories in Intune. So if you actually want to right click on an app in the publisher, that was added kind of recently too.
It's somewhere in here.
There we go. Yeah, so within an Intune app tab there, let's just right click on any app. So we've got a few options here. We can manage the categories. So this is, those categories that are associated with an app. You can create them from here as well if you'd like. And then we've seen that manage ESP profiles. If you actually want to go into that manage ESP profiles, you can click refresh now up in the top right. And we're just going to go ahead and pull down the latest count from Graph so we can see that. And, if you want, you can select it for any other app. And then I think you covered naming convention, but that was a really big ask from our customers.
Yeah.
There was, I know one of the initial reasons was the searching in Intune used to be even worse than it is now, believe it or not. They've made it a little better. So the naming conventions was a big ask from the customers, just so they can kind of make it fit their business needs. And I think Wes did use that.
Yep. Updates dash and then core update and core app. So yeah, it makes it really easy to find that to search, because us looking at it here, it's just a few apps. But as you guys probably have a lot of, if you're using Intune, you probably have a lot of apps in there. It's kind of hard. We had a customer yesterday. I showed him this, and it was like the light bulb went on, and he was very happy because he had a ton of applications out there to try to choose from. So really helpful. But what we went over today was basically the Enterprise Plus level of our publisher. We have a few different levels there, but that one handles both config manager updates, applications, and then also creating the Intune apps and updates. We can go and look in here. We do have multiple versions. We've got a lot of information out on our facts page, but of course we've got a number of links up there that you could schedule a demo with us. You could schedule a support call if we needed to do that. If you are a customer, of course, how easy it is to get in touch with us. Just support at patchmypc.com, or you can send us a Tidio message there. Andrew loves those. He's always getting on those. Then we have the 1866 number that you can reach us any time of the day if you do have an issue that you need to get resolved. We are spreading out to where we've got just about all world coverage. I believe we have one of our engineers is on the call, and he didn't think that we saw him on the call, but he did see him come on as a outside of our organization, but just started over in the UK. And then we have another one's going to be starting over in Australia here before long. So we will be able to handle just about every time zone. But right now, it's normally support is from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern, but we're spreading that out a little bit more. So hopefully before long, we'll be able to truly have a true 24-hour support. But of course, right now, if you need us, you can always get us, and you'll get an on-call engineer for that. But yeah, if anybody has any questions, I think we have gone over 2 minutes. I do apologize for that, Randall, but hopefully we were able to cover. I knew it was a lot of information that we try to cover in an hour, but it's normally the way we go there. So anybody have any questions at all?
Yeah, this is Gayatri from Stanford.
Okay.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi. So I had a few questions. Like we were using PatchMyPC for some of our applications, and then we we ran into issues like when we try to run a pre and post installation scripts, and we create a deployment as an available or required on MECM, the user prompts were not getting displayed. So I reached out to you guys, and you recommend that we configure that under updates tab. Even that didn't work. So is there any way? Yeah, are you guys going to enhance that feature in the next version, or how does it work?
We have this feature in our idea portal. So the primary roadblock here is that these actions are all happening as system.
Yeah.
So typically there's not an integrated method of showing within the user context. And we do try our best to avoid packaging in third-party applications such as Service UI, just because that provides its own set of concerns. So we do have an example on GitHub that one of my colleagues, Andrew, has written. It's not officially supported at this time, but it's something we're discussing internally, where it would use scheduled tasks that run as the user to give prompts. But so we're definitely hearing the feedback. We know it's kind of a need or at least a want from customers, but nothing in place at this time.
So the reason why I put it across, because we have requests where we have patches where the user wants, where our customer wants a timer prompt to be displayed before pushing the application out there. So in those scenarios, we need to run a PowerShell script to pre-run and then push the package, right? So in those scenarios, we need those settings to be enabled, or else it will be hard for us to customize the application.
An alternative might be, in the meantime, you could investigate maintenance windows and having discussion with the business to determine a time that you could do this without user interaction. But yeah, definitely see the use case. We just got to figure out how to do that securely from our side.
Yeah, and also when we try to customize, if we try to push a patch of an older version and try to customize it, and there's a new version out there, the settings are not getting uploaded the old version. Everything is getting uploaded to the new version, and then it doesn't work. So are you guys aware of this thing?
Our catalog always has the latest version of the applications in there.
Yeah.
So if there is a version delta between when you originally published with your custom settings and then when you try to publish a new version with custom settings, you are going to see that happen. If you'd like, you could look at the way we structure, at least for apps, SCCM-based apps, you could go manually make changes within the content source if you'd like to kind of work around this. But yeah, we're not going to be able to go make changes to old apps if it pulls down new content.
Yeah, because whatever customizations we do apply in the updates or updates or config manage app section, everything is getting uploaded in the latest version. But when we want to try a lower version than the latest, then nothing is getting applied. So that is where we are stuck. So sometimes.
Yeah, it's a tough one because vendors don't always provide old binaries. So we don't cache the binaries permanently on the device. So for example, Google Chrome doesn't provide old versions.
I think what I meant to say is, like, suppose we want to patch our users with a Java 8.9 or something. And then when once we configure that on Patch My PC, and we are about to deploy, there is a new version of Java 8.10. So whatever configurations we apply for 8.9, when we try to sync it up, it is going to 8.10. It doesn't get applied to 8.9. So these kind of issues we are facing in our end. So basically, we want a workaround, like we want to fix like how to apply custom settings for older versions. That's more of the question. If there is a new version out there.
Yeah, so it's not something that is going to be there right now. We're always going to be maintaining the latest version that's in the catalog. So I would say submit a user voice, ideas.patchmypc.com, and we can investigate what options might be there.
Okay, and can we use a higher version sequence files for older versions or not?
What was that, sorry?
So can we use, so you have this XML file, right? patch.xml file. So can we use, since the settings are getting uploaded a new version, right? Whenever we configure, can we use that file for the older versions and deploy it?
You're welcome to manipulate that packages file. You know, it's ultimately processed by that script runner. So you can kind of investigate what settings are there and then, you know, make changes appropriately. And keeping in mind, right, those could potentially get overwritten if the publisher is, you know, maintaining that package. But you can, yes, use that file.
Okay. And how do we generate a .msi package logs for uninstalls? Is there a setting on Patch My PC?
That one is not, we have a user voice for that one right now. It is not in place at this time. I think if you search for uninstall Wes, it might show up.
And we don't, I didn't see any pre or post installation post update scripts for uninstalls either.
Yep, also a user voice.
Okay. And how do we edit the package.xml file? Because
might be something that's better just to do a Q&A at this point, just because you've got a lot of very specific questions and I'm happy to answer them. But in the interest of time, I think we might want to do a Q&A. We can do a 30 or a 60-minute call with one of our engineers and answer all these very specifically to your environment.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. I would appreciate that. So
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'll make sure you get a link for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else? All right, we do appreciate you having us today. Sorry we did take a little bit long, but if there's anything that you guys need, please reach out to us. We're easy to find, patchmypc.com, and you can easily contact us via email. You can get us at support@patchmypc.com. We're glad to answer any questions for you. So thank you for your time.
All right.